You don't need this. I've stopped using tape and my lines still look like this. Before you start your next DIY paint job, I'm gonna save you frustration, money, and about 3 trips back to the store. I used to think painting was easy, and that was until I spent an entire weekend repainting my living room twice. We're talking blotches, we're talking roller marks, drips, you name it, we did everything wrong. And in that process, I realized it's not necessarily about how steady your hand is or how perfect you can do everything. It's more about the prep and having the right tools for the job. So here's what you need before your first brush ever even hits the wall. To start with, you need the right paintbrush for cutting in. Cutting in is something we talk about. That's where we get into the corners, we get into the edges, and we're able to do it with just the brush and get nice, beautiful straight lines. The best brush for this is to get a 2 or 2.5, this is 2.5, that's what I usually use, a 2.5 inch angled sash brush. That angle is really valuable for cutting in. You can cut in with a straight brush, but that angled sash is just super helpful. And honestly, you can use the angled sash even for normal straight painting. So if I have to choose between the two, because they're usually more than $10 a piece, often more like 15, I'll just get an angled brush. Couple of pro tips: keep a damp, just lightly dampened rag on hand that you can use to wipe away spots when you make those little bit mistakes. And number 2, practice first on kind of a hidden corner. Corners are one of the hardest spots anyway, and it's a spot people are less likely to see and notice if you make a little mistake. The next one is a paint roller and an extension pole. Getting a decent quality roller makes all the difference. The way they hold the paint and the way that they distribute the paint is just better than if you just get the ultra cheapest thing out there. The extension pole is going to make a huge difference to help you reduce fatigue. Stop climbing up and down step ladders every 2 minutes. Your back will thank you. When we use a roller, we're gonna lay it on there in kind of a W pattern, and we're gonna overlap the lines so that we can kind of blend in the edge lines. You want long strokes from the top all the way to the bottom if you can, or I usually like to do about half the wall at a time, kind of top to about the middle, and then you're just gonna overlap that a little bit and angle up in kind of a really narrow W pattern. Pro tip here: if you dampen the roller before you put paint on it, it's gonna do a couple of things for you. It's gonna help to keep the fibers sort of controlled, the fibers of the paint roller. It's also gonna prevent as much paint from sticking to the roller, distributing it better onto the wall. You'll end up with a smoother coat and just a more even finish. Now, the right way to dampen your roller is you can start just get the whole thing wet like this, and then one fun way to do it is to just spin it like a wet dog, right? You take it outside and you spin it and it's just gonna spray water everywhere. You can also roll it like along a towel or something to absorb most of it off. Because in the end, all you want is for all of the fibers to be dampened, not soaking wet. Then have at it, but take it easy. I don't like to spin the roller too fast, because then we get paint sort of spraying everywhere and you're more likely to bump the ceiling. But even if you don't, you're more likely to spray paint all over the place, all over yourself, the floor, and the ceiling. So take it easy, or you'll end up painting your ceiling one way or another by accident. The next is some kind of paint holder. Now, for brush painting, like when I'm doing along the ceiling, I do like to use a little bucket. You can't even see the brand on this anymore. I think it's like Handy or something. I'll look it up, we can link to it in the description. This one's kind of cool. It's got a little magnet on it so it can hold the brush not all the way down in, because I never really want more than, you can see here, I've gotten paint all the way up about an inch or so on there. I'm really aiming most of the time to just have that top ½ inch of the brush with paint in it. So if I'm gonna set it there, I don't want it going all the way into the bottom. It's nice that it kind of holds it there. But this allows me to have a nice handle and be able to hold a nice, reasonable amount of paint right here without having to go back to the bucket all the time, or carry a whole gallon of paint with me as I go. Likewise, for rolling, we're gonna need to use a tray. A typical tray, you can get liners for these. I just didn't have any, so I'm just using the tray, and I just rinse it out after I'm done. It's pretty quick and easy to do. But the trays are really cheap, and they're gonna save you that cleanup work. You just pull it out and throw it away. Now, what works better than a tray, though, is you can use a 5-gallon bucket with one of these metal grids, and use the grid to roll the roller up against, instead of rolling it up along the side here, this little kind of washboard thing. And that's gonna help even out the paint on the roller. But again, that grid just does a better job of it than this and makes a lot fewer messes. But that's totally an optional upgrade. You can save some money and just get a paint tray. Been using that for years and it works just fine. Okay, next is some fine sandpaper, and you can get like a sanding disc here, and we can do a quick sanding over a wall. Now, this is typically if I'm painting over a wall that's already been painted, it's been there for a while, you've been living in the house, right? If you don't do at least a wash of the wall, like at least wipe it down, or just a quick sanding is actually probably quicker, you're gonna end up painting over a lot of dirt and grime and things that have built up on the wall over time. A quick sanding is gonna end up giving you a smoother and more even finish. It's not a necessary required step. Some professionals will tell you, you've gotta do it, it makes all the difference. I've also seen other professional painters not do it, and their work turns out great. So I see it as a way to level it up, and it doesn't have to take very long. Just a quick little sanding over the surface, and then a wipe down with a damp rag to take off any dust that you loosen up in your sanding process is gonna do a bit to help make the finished product look better. Now, as I talk about sanding, I gotta mention when you're patching holes. If you've got an existing wall and you've patched some holes, or like this is a new wall. This is in the garage, right? So I am dealing with bare drywall and I'm dealing with tape and mud, right? I'm painting straight over that. Anytime that you're going to paint over, fresh spackle, fresh mud, I mean dried, but like there's no other paint over it, you wanna use a little bit of primer first. I know basically every one of these interior paints says it's a paint plus primer combo, right? That's true, but the paint is gonna absorb very differently on fresh drywall as well as on that dried spackle, that dried mud joint compound. It's gonna absorb very differently, and you're gonna end up with a more of a matte finish on those spots than over the rest of the wall that's already been painted before. So always just run a little bit of primer and just keep some primer on hand. Now in this case, I'm having to prime the whole wall because it's painting over fresh drywall. But if you're painting over patches, it's going to turn out better. If you just take a brush and brush over the top with a little bit of primer, and that way when you roll the whole thing, you're gonna get a nice even finish everywhere. Okay, now we gotta talk about a few miscellaneous items that are gonna make a big difference if you think of these ahead of time. I mentioned a damp rag. Have a damp rag on hand. It's just gonna make your life easier when you accidentally make a little mistake. If you wipe off this water-based paint real quick, no big deal, right? You can fix any of these little mistakes that you make. If you have to run in and get a rag and come back out, which I had to do in another video, and why my line didn't end up totally perfect, it's gonna be dry by the time you get back out there, or too dry to take all the paint off in many cases. Next, you want a portable light, a work light, a lamp, I don't care what it is, but something that's gonna be able to cast light directly on the area that you're painting. If you don't have a light and that area's not well lit up, you're gonna end up with unevenness that you can't see. And then the next day, in fact, I did this on a wall in here, I didn't have the light turned on, I painted over the whole thing, and when it dried, I noticed there were spots where the paint went on thin and there's a lot of white bleeding through. That's going to happen to you every time. You're also gonna get paint lines and just other unevenness that you can't see until later when you have a little bit better lighting. Next, a drop cloth or at least a piece of cardboard to help protect the floor. You never realize just how much you drip and how much paint splatters until you ruin some carpet or worse, something else expensive. Also, keep some plastic wrap on hand. Use this to wrap a paintbrush or rollers in between jobs or when you're taking a break. That's gonna help keep the brush wet. If you have to rinse out your brush, and you can do it quick like that, just super easy, super simple. If you have to rinse out your brush, it's gonna be at least like 12 hours before it's dry enough to use again. But if you don't wrap it and you don't rinse it, your paint's gonna start drying on there and you can say goodbye to clean edges. It's just not gonna happen anymore. Another hack we can use is to take a rubber band and put this over the paint can. That's gonna give you something that you can wipe the paintbrush up against rather than the edge of the can to help minimize drips and stuff. Now, if you do it carefully on the edge of the can, you're not gonna drip outside the can. So if you do it smart, you're fine. But the rubber band can help with this. It's one of those like Instagram tricks people show. I don't know how many pro painters are doing that, but it's an option. And it could help you out quite a bit, especially if this is just something you're doing every now and then because you're a home DIY person. And next, I like to have like a gallon size zipper bag. What this allows you to do is to take the roller after you finish rolling the wall, and you can take off the roller. In fact, just turn the bag inside out and use it like as a glove, and then you can take the roller off, okay? And then we stick the roller inside the bag and seal it up. Get as much of the air out as you reasonably can, and then we seal up the bag. Now, we can store it this way overnight while the paint dries, and we have a roller ready to do our second coat the next day. Save yourself some money. Rinsing these out is basically never worth it. It's gonna take you 20 minutes to get most of the paint out of this, and you'll never get it all back out. The nap won't be the same anymore, so it won't roll the same. It's basically never ever worth it to try to rinse these out. You're either gonna throw it away or you're gonna store it in a bag to use again very soon. Now, don't think you can store it in a bag and plan to use it again a month from now or 2 months from now. It's still gonna dry out. So throw it in a bag, use it the next day to do any touch-ups or second coats, and then plan to be done with it. It's disposable for a reason. These are the kinds of hacks that are gonna make your paint job look like you really knew what you were doing, even if you didn't. Thanks for joining me today on Fixter. My name's Ricky. We'll see you here next time. Hey, did you like that? If there are other paint tips that you have that you'd like to share with this audience, let us know in the comments below. If you have other questions about painting and other DIY stuff, also ask those in the comments below. We're all about enabling people here to be able to do more of their own home repairs, maintenance, and upgrades. There's a lot you can do yourself if you want to try, and we want to help you do that. I've also got more videos here about painting. You can click here to see a whole playlist about videos about painting. So go check that out if this is something that you want to do on your home, or maybe you're working on a project right now and just want some more advice. There's tons of it over there. Go check out that playlist. Yeah, go ahead. You can click on it. This video's over. You can go.